Hey, my name is Steve Martile, and in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about auric fields and how to tune into possibility. So what I'm going to do is, I haven't done this in a video before, at least not that I can think of. I'm going to actually share some of the science that backs up what auric fields are. I'm going to share the professor of anatomy at Yale University that first started studying this at the School of Medicine in the 1940s and 70s, up to the 70s. And I'm going to explain what they are, what are some of the actual characteristics of these fields, and then I'm going to talk about how we can actually access them, okay? So I hope this is super useful for you. I'm going to be doing a bit of reading because I'm going to be sharing some actual facts and some information from some documents that back up that auric fields exist, that they're actually the governing structure of our biology, and how they tie us to the Earth's magnetic field as well. Okay, so first I'm going to be referring to a couple different things, but one is that I'm going to read something off from Harold Saxton Burr, who's got there's a book called The Blueprint for Immortality. He was a researcher into bioelectrics and the professor of anatomy at Yale University in the School of Medicine. He says, quote, "It is sometimes possible to measure field voltages with the electrodes a short distance from the surface of the skin, not in contact with it. This shows that it is a true field that is measured and not some surface potential." Okay, so that's the first. Number two is, and this again was from Harold Saxton Burr, Blueprint for Immortality, was the professor of anatomy at Yale University School of Medicine and researcher into bioelectrics. Here's another specific fact I want to share with you. So, open quote. This is again from Saxton Burr. "The voltage across the chest of a mouse." Let me just give you some context. So they did over 10,000 measurements of mice, over 100 mice, over months and months and months, over the lifetime of these mice, to see if there was any correlation between malignant tumors and cancer and the fields that those mice were emitting. Okay, so it says here, open quote, "The voltage across the chest of the mouse increased by several thousand microvolts between 10 days and 2 weeks in advance of the malignant tumor being detected by palpation." In other words, by feeling the mouse, and then they actually did surgery on these after they died. So what's really interesting, that one quote alone, is that this is scientifically found, like I said, over 100 mice, and it was consistent. Any of them that are more susceptible to cancer, 10 days to 2 weeks in advance of getting the cancer, the fields had increased by several thousand microvolts. Okay, so it was an increase in the field, and then 2 weeks later, they found out by the actual palpation, feeling the biology of the mouse, that they actually had cancer. Okay, so the field is what precipitates and precedes biology. Okay, and again, all this is, I'm going to put a lot of this down below, but Harold Saxton Burr, he's just one of the pioneers. There's a lot of people who have done studies since that, but he's one of the pioneers of this field. Bioelectric fields that we're talking about. Open quote. "Based on these findings, drawn from more than 10,000 measurements, Burr concluded that the appearance of abnormal tissue in the organism was preceded by abnormal distribution of voltages in the affected area of the body." Now, that's in the biology of the body. I want to share another study that Burr also did. I think I called him Barr, but Saxton Burr did with trees, and they did this over a few years, okay? From 1943 to 1944, open quote. "Reoccurrent events in the changing potential were obvious. During the hours from midnight to sunrise in the early morning, voltage gradients were relatively low, but constant. With the beginning of daylight, a chance occurred with a marked increase in the magnitude of the potential differences, usually reaching a height around noon. These changes were recorded over a 3-month period in the summers of 1943 and 1944. Okay? And there's so many other things that I can quote, but this is now the fields of these trees being measured and noticing the difference that sunlight has on those fields. Okay? And then I'm going to give you one more fact, and then I'm going to get into a bit of a summary and then how you can actually tune into these fields. So this is from Wikipedia under magnetofields, which is another word for biofields. But these magnetic fields, the difference mainly is that magnetic fields are coming from the planet, okay, Gaia, versus coming from your body. So the fields in your body, the biofields, are communicating with the earth fields, right? Which are the magnetofields. Let me give you an example. Open quote, many animal orders, such as certain birds, marine reptiles, turtles, amphibians, and fishes are able to detect small variations of the geomagnetic field and its magnetic inclination to find their seasonal habitats. You guys have probably seen Earth, or there's a couple of great documentaries where there's sea turtles, they leave, and then when they come back to give birth, they come back to the exact beach that they were born on, right? How does that happen? It's these fields that are communicating through the geomagnetic fields of the planet with our biofields, and when there's synchronicity, that's how they use as a compass to know where to go back to their original habitat. So these biofields exist. They can be controlled by sunlight, by the environment. Obviously, they synchronize with the fields of the planet. They can control by stimulus, right? Like your environment, things in your environment. They're measured outside the body, but they are very subtle, low voltages, and they have nothing to do with increases in temperature, right? So they're very, very low, subtle voltages. Some people refer to these fields as your intuition or the mind of God. Now, how do we tune in? So, I got a bunch of tapes here. Step one is you got to get quiet, okay? So you get quiet at the start of your day. You can do meditate, do yoga, or you can do my 8-minute meditation, which is on my channel, my YouTube channel, okay? I have an 8-minute meditation. It actually helps release tension as well. But you can do whatever you want. But the point is you got to get quiet. And the first thing that a lot of us do, right, is we grab our phones in the morning. So if you can get quiet and actually avoid any sounds, if you're in a position that you can do that, if you've got kids, you probably can't. I get it. But if you're single or you live by yourself, you can be quiet and stay present to what's happening. And by doing that, what happens is the subtler fields, the biofield, will be more receptive to Gaia fields, other people's fields, so that you pick up on this voice of God, or basically these biofields, which is a lot of people call tuition. But I just wanted to share with you that there's a science behind this. It's not just like someone saying there. Now, I will admit that some people are more sensitive to these biofields and the magnetic fields from the earth than others, and other people's fields. And certain events in the world, some people are more in touch and sensitive to that. However, this is something you can learn to do to become sensitive to these fields. Now, why would you want to do it? Because, you can get a faint thought from a new way to draw business to you, but because you're too distracted in the mind and those fields and electrical signals and the chemicals in the brain, you miss out on those tiny, tiny little faint thoughts that are giving you ideas about what you were intending to manifest. A whisper of someone, to call someone or to reach out to someone, and you miss it, right? It's like it's there and then it's gone. It's very subtle. Remember, these voltages are they're millivolts. They're just tiny, 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 tiny amplitude of energy that once we are tuned into, we can connect with and then help us to direct and steer us. Maybe there's a certain part of the planet you need to be, or you need to move, or you need to connect with someone. And they've been reaching out telepathically through these fields, but you're not receiving, you're not in tune. And the reason you're not in tune is because you're not quiet. Okay? You could get a tingling in the chest about something important to happen, right? And that's another example of how the field is creating emotions, which are chemicals in the body, to stimulate a response by your body. So how do you tune into possibility? Once you're quiet, follow nudges, right? If you get nudges to do something or to call someone or to try something or to experiment, notice the feelings in your body and then be the observer. If you can just be the observer on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, you will be in touch with these biofields, right? Changes in the sunlight, changes in your environment. You are sensitive to that. Like I said, it's something that can be learned, but the key is, for most people, they're so loud in the morning. There's so much distraction. They're getting the mind really busy and high beta. And by the time you have your coffee, it's like your mind's running so fast that any sort of like chance that the body has to get your attention through these biofields is completely lost, because you're all in the head, into your thoughts, and you're gone. Now, I haven't been drinking coffee regularly for a year and a half, but I do have the odd one. Those are not the days when I'm going to be tuning in. They're just, I'm having a coffee. And I know that intentionally. Okay? So, follow nudges, notice feelings, be the observer. That's how you tune in. But number one is you got to get quiet. If you think of your brain and body, the fields in your body, as like being in New York City, and you're in New York City and it's noisy, there's lots of traffic, there's lots going on. And when you get quiet, it's like you're in a field or you're near the ocean and you're just like, there's no one around. And when you get that quiet, what happens is then you can tune in, but you got to get quiet first. And if you're tuning in right now and you've been watching my videos and you've been practicing some form of meditation, yoga, and you do get quiet, there's always a deeper level to that you can go so that you get really present to what's going on in your body. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful. Again, just to summarize, there are fields that are just outside the body. Okay? They can be measured. Over hundreds of different test measurements. With the mice example, the experiment that I just shared with you, the microvolts that's being measured is measured 2 to 3 weeks before cancer shows up in the body. So these fields are an indication of what's to come. That's why your intuition, you said you get a sense of something good's going to happen. That's that field being activated, for example, in your heart. Okay? So, HeartMath is another place you can check out to learn more about the science of this, but it does exist. It's not something I just made up. It's something we're all connected to, and you can tune into these fields to become more intuitive, to become more telepathic, and to help you direct to know what's next for you in your life. A lot of the time people struggle with the direction of life, of what choices they need to do to make what needs to happen next, is because they're not quiet, they're not tuned in. But you can't tune in unless you get quiet first. And this is a practice, something you commit to daily, if not for your entire life, because it gives you access to this, which is where the magic is. Okay? Awesome. Hope you found that helpful and useful. I've got a book coming out next year called The 7-Day Manifestation Experiment. If you want to get in the waiting list for that, there's a link down below. You can opt in and send your email and information. I'm going to give you my quantum manifestation training as well for free. 1 video a week if you decide to get on the waiting list. And for those of you who want to go deeper, to get more clarity in terms of your direction in your life at this point, especially around this time of the year, we're at the end of 2021, and you need some help to do that, sometimes clearing some stagnant old energy is the way that you can get access to that new information. And if that's something you're interested in, there's also a link below to my schedule or my calendar if you want me to help you clear energy blocks. The first call is just a conversation for us to get a chat, to get to know each other and see if there's something we can do together. And if we can, fantastic. I will let you know that. I'll help you. There's a fee involved, but honestly, it's not that much. and it makes all the difference. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being a subscriber. Please like this if you enjoyed the video, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Thanks for watching again. My name's Steve, and we'll talk to you next time.